Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cosmic Forecast, where we're doing a snapshot of where the planets are right now, what is activated in our body graph, in our gene keys, and astrologically. And we are right now in transit of gate or gene key 20, which is all about presence and remaining calm, whatever environment we have around us or whatever emotional environment is triggered inside of us. So it's this ability to stay centered, to be the observer, to be the presence, even when things are bubbling up, whether they are coming from inside ourselves, our emotional body, for example, we're not here to control, or our outer environment that we're actually not here to control completely either. So that's the theme of the week. And we're already in line 3 right now. So there can be that energy of trial and error, of like not getting it right, but also an energy of experimentation, an energy of playfulness, an energy of fun, right? So it's that third line has those two sides of it. So I'm going to start sharing with you where the planets are, and also showing you, because sometimes we don't really understand how human design and gene keys are connected to the astrology. So I'm just going to share with you right now how it looks. So the Rave Mandala shows us that relationship between the human design and astrology. So you have the astrological wheel here with all the signs, and you see it goes counterclockwise. So we're in Taurus, now we're in Gemini. The sun is now in Gemini. And outside the wheel, we have all the gates of human design, or all the gene keys in the gene keys. But that comes from the hexagram structure of the I Ching. So we have 6 lines that are either broken, yin lines, or not broken, yang lines, and 6 lines that are either broken or full. They are going to make 64 different combinations when you combine them in all the possibilities, all the possible ways that they can be combined. So that's what we have put around the Rave Mandala. So, for example, now the sun is in Gemini, in mutable air, and it's also in gate 20. And opposite the sun, we have the Earth, which is in gate 34 in Sagittarius. So that's the opposition that we have right now in when we look at what is activated in the sun and the Earth right now. And then you have all the other planets. So you can also see, just by looking at it here, because this is not something that we see when we look at the body graph and just activations, we don't see that we have all these activations in Gemini right now. We have actually a conjunction. They are together on, on top of each other. You can say Mercury and Venus. And what does that mean? So there is something beautiful with looking at the Rave Mandala, both understanding this astrological sign, and if you are a little bit more into astrology, you also know what the element is, and that tells you the quality of that exact gate or of that exact activation. And you can see that we still have activations in Capricorn that have been so strong for the last more than 6 months, and they're still there. And we have Saturn and Jupiter together, and they are very different in the way that they like things. So what does it mean that they are together? So this is exactly the same thing as we see when we look at it here. We don't have the astrological sign. We don't know which ones are. If we don't know the exact order of all the gates, we're not going to know, oh, they are so close to each other. For example, the 6 and the 61, they're right next to each other. But if we don't know the order, we won't know that. And if we look in the Rave Mandala, we can see, okay, 6 to 61, they're right next to each other. They are Capricorn energy. Okay, that makes sense, right? And it's really realism and structure. So of course they make sense. But they are activated in completely different, that's the thing too, like we were saying, Jupiter is the law, and it's expansion, and it's one kind of more masculine energy. And Saturn is much more about rules, about that kind of, it likes structure. It likes to be in the 60, and probably Jupiter doesn't really like it until it understands the structure are actually really good for expansion. When the structure is there, that can actually support expansion. That's a little bit more maybe of a conflict, but it can actually really serve to have Jupiter there. So looking at the chart, we can also see that we have a very defined chart right now. We have the integration circuitry that we are speaking about in human design that has to do with being self-absorbed, being busy with your own thing. We have this manifesting generator channel 3420, the sacral power that is directly connected with the throat. So you have that sacral power being expressed. So that can often come out as a kind of busyness. But more than a busyness, is about not being available for the outside, being absorbed in your own presence, in your own process. And it doesn't mean that you have to do things really fast. It just means that you're in your own process, not available for the outside. And we also have the 10, because the 10 is a nodal environment. So that's also connected. So we have quite a lot of the integration circuitry. So maybe this is a week for self-absorption, coming back to yourself, feeling into, how do you want to be present in the now? What is your relationship to your identity? Like, do you have self-love? Are you in an environment where you can be you, where you can express yourself naturally? And what are you doing with your life force? How are you empowering yourself, and how are you using your energy? Those are questions that are for sure there in the integration circuitry. And we also have the channel that we had before, because the 61 is Pluto. So it stays there for a long time. And the 24 is in Uranus. It's a further away planet. So it takes some time in that transit. So still we have that inspiration coming in from the head and being repeated in a way, coming back to that and making sense of it, you could say, in the rationalization of the 24, but also being careful about those patterns that could just go over and over again, which we would probably call addiction in a destructive sense. So becoming aware of that, becoming aware also of the mass psychosis that might be, either inside you somehow, like all wise and all thoughts inside your head leads you to that, or everything on the outside. So be a little bit careful about the low frequencies of addiction and psychosis in the 61 and the 24. And then we still have, I think this is the same last week, a completely open splenic center. So the fears, are you immune? Almost, there's nothing that's triggering you. That could be one thing. Or the other thing kind of goes together with a 20, because can you remain just like a mirror, on this, can you remain present even when there are fears going on in your body, even when you're triggered, even when your emotional body is moving? Are you still able to be centered, or are you carried away by your fears? And is this triggered by your senses? Is it triggered by something auditory? Is it triggered by something that you smell? Is it triggered by, what is it triggered by? So it's a good week to look at what is triggering you, and what takes you out of your center. And then the emotional center has a couple of activations, and it's open. So how maybe about taking in other people's emotions, about knowing what's yours and what's not yours, about speaking your truth, although that might cause confrontation. Are you actually speaking your own truth? You have a defined throat right now. And that brings us into the 45 that we have in both Mercury and Venus. And this is interesting, because in the Gene Key language, when we speak about Mercury, it's our sphere of relating. So it's, how do you relate to the world? What is your genius there? And here it's asking us to step up in a tribal leadership almost. It's asking us to, it is this Gemini energy, and it's gathering together, it's canvassing. There's a generosity in the higher expression of it, in the way that we are expressing ourselves, in the way that we're caring about the community, in the way that we're stepping up. And then Venus, if we're thinking about the Gene Keys again, this is the IQ. This is how do we think? How do we rationalize things? So again, this leadership voice, but here we have a fourth line. So it's about also speaking from your heart and convincing. It's a convincing Gemini energy. And hopefully the 45 is, it's not the immutable air that it's changing all the time, but there could be a stability in that, in the throat center, that is not being swayed in different directions, but that has that quality. And then Venus, in a more astrological sense, it is about your values, and it's connected now to the relating, to the communication that we have. So that is powerful. That's powerful. And then we also have, when we look back, you see also that we have in the node, we have Gemini energy, and also the activation of the sun. So a lot of Gemini, a lot of things you can look at this side of it and that side of it. It's a lot of that. You can adapt to new situations that can actually make you, like we were saying before, being present in the now. So I feel like that is it's really showing us a lot of things where the collective, what's lit up for the collective right now by how the planets are. And I actually like genetic matrix a lot. So I'm just going to show that chart really quick before so here you have even more. Here you can also add the design side of it. So it's like a snapshot. If, it's kind of also the soul of the moment in a way when we add the red. What I also like is that you see the quarters. So that's human design again. And you can see, okay, there's a lot of Gemini energy, and it's also the civilization. That's the quarter. And learning more about the quarters also makes us understand more about all the gates that are in here, and also about, of course, the signs. So I'm wishing you all a really beautiful transit in gate or Gene Key 20, and I'll be back next transit. Thank you.